All right, now for part two here, we're just going to talk about some general rules. We just went through things, but we went through our market. Some were a little specific, why things happen in that particular scenario. But now we're just going to take a step back and just look at general principles and these general rules of, how you can identify, whether it's shorting or dilution or whatever. We're going to get into reality here because, lots of stuff out there will take you out of reality, away from reality. But here we're going to keep you grounded. So the first general rule, the location of the MMs. So let's just think about this and keep this in mind going forward. If the MM has an aggressive ask and bid, then there's no red flags. Sure, they could be shorting, but as I've been driving home, shorters must buy back, so they will be active on the bid. So that is just the first thing to always look at. Where are the location of the MMs? Now, if an MM has an aggressive ask but not a bid, that is a red flag. Now, it still may be tradable, meaning just because there's dilution going on doesn't mean that the price still can't go up. But again, an MM that has an aggressive ask but not a bid, red flag. I'd say 9.99 times out of 10 there is dilution going on, whether it's via the company or loan sharks, who really cares. But one of those things where you have an aggressive ask, not such an aggressive can't say that word, bid, probably dilution. Now, if an MM has an aggressive bid but not an ask, then that is a green flag. And you got to be extra sure. But that's one of those things where that's pretty positive, because like SEEB in our example, they continually had an aggressive bid because they were short and they kept trying to buy at the ask. But because all those outside influences, outside parties were also buying at the ask, they were having trouble getting shares. So when you see an MM that seems to always be the best bid or the inside bid, but yet on the ask side of things, they're never really at the best ask, or they're just way out of the picture. Very, very good sign, and one that should always be kept an eye out for. I wish I could say it happened all the time, and there are these sorts of short squeezes happening all the time, but unfortunately, you don't really get too many of these scenarios down here. So what am I talking about? Well, let's look at some of these examples from the penny stocks that you hopefully look familiar from the previous videos. So let's, now that with our information, let's just look at reputations and then the location of where they are. So reputation, nothing bad here. There's Vert. So Vert is sitting here at 0.0012. Now, where is Vert on the bid? Vert is at 0009. So not too bad, somewhat active. If the price were to get up here at 000 or 0012, looking to cover at 0009, so kind of active. But as always, Vert could be trying to play a little game, and there may not be much size there. So I'd still be watching that like a hawk. Vert's still right there, but they're not super far down on the bid, but it's still within the neighborhood. But at the end of the day, like we showed in that example, the true test comes if any sort of bid whacking happens. So let's say some bid whacking happens, and then Vert's all of a sudden on the best bid, and a couple small little bid whacks happen, and Vert is the first MM to disappear. Probably a game going on. They really don't want to buy that many shares. Yet on the flip side, if you're watching and a bunch of ask slaps happen, so UBS drops off, Auto drops off the night, and now Vert, and these are the best ones, and then all this happens, and then you see a bunch of Vert just staying, yet you remember them dropping off very quickly over there. Yeah, probably dilution, probably trying to play some sort of game, making it look like they're interested to buy some shares, but they're just doing that to try to hide their actions, try to manipulate the price upwards to show that, the bids, to make the bid appear stronger than what it actually is. Here's another one. Let's do a little quiz here. I'm going to pause it. You look and see kind of if you see anything that's fishy anywhere. Actually, no, I take that back, because this is one I didn't say as, no, let's do that again. I love doing this stuff on the fly, but when we're hanging out, that's kind of just how it goes. So take a look, see if you see anything that's, from a location standpoint that, draws your attention. All right, so if you said, you know what, I saw Vime, not the best reputation, but this is on the bid, and they're up there. So, who cares about that? They're a buyer. I have no problems with that. So Vime, not posing any threats. Vert, way down here, so they're outside of the market, up there at $1.01. Where's VNDM anywhere? There, VNDM way down. So they're both priced out of the market. But maybe you notice PERT. So PERT, they're looking to sell at 0.505. Now, Usually this isn't anything to really, okay, it's PERT, whatever. But in this situation, what the heck? PERT all the way down here at 0.39. So they are aggressive on the ask, yet not even close to being aggressive on the bid. Now, they're not totally priced out like VERT and VN down here at 11 cents, but still 39 cents when the best bid is 50. I would not consider that active at all, yet they are the most aggressive on the ask. You know, maybe shorting, but if they're shorting, let's say there's some ask slaps that happen and they're shorting, what should PERT really do? PERT should start to move. Which direction should PERT start to move? Get a little bit more active on the bid. Now, do they have to pop all the way up to best bid? No, I'm not saying that, but they should get much more active than where they are right now. I mean, they are right in the thick of things right here on the ask. But as far as I'm concerned, in this static moment in time, PERT is shorting, or PERT is diluting. Now, they could be shorting. Like I said, the R-stack or snapshots in time. We don't have the tape here. Nothing's unfolding before us, so we can't make that for sure. But again, if you see a bunch of, ass slaps happen and then PERT finally moves, and then you see PERT get active, maybe shorting, maybe. But then if you see a small little bid whack and PERT disappears again, well, no, PERT was just trying to play a game, make it look like they're providing bid support. So, but as far as this snapshot, this point in time, to me, PERT evidence is pretty overwhelming that PERT is more than likely diluting. I mean, best ask, and then not even close to being the best bid at all. I mean, not as bad as some, but still not even within the ballpark as far as I'm concerned. All right, let's take a look at this one. Hopefully this looks familiar again. Take a look and let me know if anything stands out as potential dilution and or shorting. All right, hopefully this one is pretty straightforward, because not only do we have VNDM right there, who doesn't have the best reputation. They're on the best ask, so they're the most aggressive at 0.0175. So where are they on the bid? Nothing until way down here at 1 penny. So not even close to where they are up here on their most aggressive ask. Like the previous example, a VNDM, what did I just say? If VNDM was somewhere up around here, then okay, maybe shorting, at least they're, in the market. But I mean, they're not even trying right now. They're not even trying to manipulate it up. They're not even trying to play any games. They're just pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, saying, yeah, we're diluting. We're sitting here right on the ask. We're not even making an attempt on the bid. I mean, this is one of these kind of slap in the face types things, where it's just like, at least try to manipulate it up. At least try to make it look like you're trying to support the stock. But in this case, I mean, they're not even no attempt on their part to manipulate or help us out at all as traders. Remember, manipulation is fine as long as the price is going up, but this is just lazy dilution here. So that's the term I'll call this. Lazy dilution right here. Sitting right on top of the best ask, yet not even trying to manipulate, make it look like anything else is going on in terms of the bid. So, lazy dilution, that's no good. And then just look at this one again. Lazy dilution, since it's this new term. PERT is not even trying to manipulate, just totally being lazy. I mean, that's just a bummer. We want manipulation. We want people to think the bid is strong so the price keeps going up. I mean, manipulation on a long side, that's not a bad thing as long as you know that manipulation is happening. That's the big difference. Do you know what's happening, or do you think it's all shorting that's going on? So you're just going to keep buying more shares so you can stick it to the short, Got to be able to decipher this stuff. Decipher. There we go. Decipher this stuff. And things become a lot more clear. Now let's move on to some more general rules. The wake-up location. We already talked about this, but where does the MM locate after being at a price well outside of the market? How does this location match up with the bid-ask location? See the previous rule. So if they wake up and they're right down in the heat of things, for example, VERT in our scenario was way up at 55 cents, and then all of a sudden, came into the party and was right in the thick of things, yet on the bid, nowhere to be found. So when new MMs, and this applies to new MMs too, so when new market makers show up out of nowhere, sometimes, they'll be you can see them, but they're way back. Other times, all of a sudden, you just see 4 new letters up there, and oh, hey, look, a new market maker showed up. Well, where do they show up at? And then, make sure you judge on the bid and the ask. Where are things relative, bid and ask? It's all comparing. Now, first to leave or last to go. This is another little trick that you can use that's pretty revealing that you would never have any chance at using if you didn't use level 2s and were stuck with level 1s. But when there's a large box on the ask, who was continually the last MM or two standing when all MMs have changed? So when you have, let's just say 8 MMs up there, and let's say one of them is VFin and Vert, and all the other, ask slaps start happening, and all the MMs start changing levels, going higher in price because, they're done. Who's the last one standing? Dilution, it's going to be VFin or Vert, or they're going to, they're always going to be the last one sitting there so they can sell the remainder of their shares, whatever they want. So that's a trick that I don't think many people realize is, just keep us, especially those big walls. They can be fake walls where, a lot of the market makers drop off very fast. But in some cases, when it's dilution, those reputation ones, they're always going to be kind of the last one standing there, last one sitting on the ask. If there's no pattern here, so let's say a VFin maybe is the last one at one wall, and then another wall, he's one of the first to go. And then at the next wall, he leaves like mid. Well, then, there's not really a pattern. But if it's always VFin, Billy Bob sitting there after all these other market makers have dropped off. And then again at another wall, VFin, Billy Bob, still sitting there after all these other market makers have dropped off. Yeah, Billy Bob's probably just selling shares and diluting for the company. We already talked about this one a little bit within the scenario, but the distance of movement. So when the MM does change prices, how far do they actually move? If they're going from 0.205 to 0.206, or let's just say 0.08 to 0.081, and you see all the other market makers that have gone, in this situation, they've all gone to 0.085 after. So let's say this. Let's say there is a wall at 0.081. So first there was, just kind of a little small wall, and VFin went from 0.08 to 0.081. All right, well, there's a clue. And then, but at 0.081, there's just this big old wall. And as the MMs fall off the wall, they go and seem to form another wall at 0.085. Yet VFin just simply hops to 0.082. Big red flag. So always ask yourself, are they moving normal distances? Now, how do you define normal? Well, that's just how, you just have to watch the market makers, watch the level twos, and it needs to be relative to everybody else. Like I said here in this little example I made up, if everybody is pretty much moving to 0.085 or 0.084, 0.09, just whatever, they're just moving a fair amount of distance away, yet VFin just moves here, and previously he had just gone from 0.08 to 0.081, now he's only at 0.082. Yeah, he's definitely diluting. So, and again, you combine that with the other rules that we have now. Where's VFin located on the bid? If it's lazy dilution and he's way down on the bid, then that's just obvious. Sometimes I just have to laugh because you see these people proclaiming shorting, and you look at level twos, it's like he's lazy. He's being a lazy diluter right now. He's not even trying to manipulate. He's not even trying to make it look like the bid's strong. He's sitting way down on the bid and sitting at the best ask. I can understand when people are tricked because the MMs are manipulating, trying to make it look like they want to buy. But in some cases, it's just like, oh, come on now. Now the truth serum, the tape. I've hinted at this throughout the course. All rules until this point have just been about location and movement, but none of these really matter as long as the price is able to move. Do we agree on that? I hopefully, because this is not the first time I've said that. So on that same note, if one MM just sits on the best ask and tape and shows many, and you see many orders go through, and yet the MM is still there, dilution, which is what I just talked about, but I want to drive that home. When you're sitting there watching the tape and it's just one MM, VFin, Vert, maybe a new MM has come up since I filmed this, and you just see this over and over again. Apply those previous rules, and it really does make sense. It's just sitting there and buying or selling and selling and selling. And let's say they're not being lazy, and then they come up on a best bid, and you see, them absorb a little bit. Who cares? They've sold all that compared to what they just bought on the bid. Very easy to see when you watch the tape, look at the truth serum. Nobody can hide from the tape. Sure, market makers don't need to show the order of the share size order, but we can figure it out as we've gone through and seen by watching the tape. And when you see ask slap after just the ask getting pounded over and over again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, something doesn't make any sense, especially when on the bid, they're not even close to being active over there at all. So, just keep that in mind. I know I'm harping on this, spending a lot of time, but I'm doing this very intentionally because it's one of those things where this is where you can tell who understands level twos and who doesn't when you see people out on the message boards and stuff like that. I mean, people are always crying shorting, and then you pull it up and it's just like that's very obvious what's going on. And now for you, it's going to be very obvious because you know exactly what to look for. I get passionate about these rules, and I see that once again I'm a little bit ahead of myself, but that's all right. We're gonna keep driving this home. I want to annoy you with this stuff. So you need to take mental notes. I hinted at this a little bit, but how many, generally speaking, has an MM sold when they're sitting on the ask? Now, generally speaking, I'm not saying you have to sit there with a calculator and start writing out all this stuff. Just generally speaking, in your mind when you say, oh wow, that was a lot. Or that barely wasn't much, barely any, or normal, and not really sure. If you're not really sure, then it wasn't a lot, because when MMs are just lazily diluting, I mean, they just sit there and just boom, boom, boom. The ask keeps getting hit, and they're not moving. So if you're not really sure, then you're probably in the range of just normal. It's normal, But if they're moving very quickly, then if they are diluting, then they're doing it in very small amounts. And at the end of the day, if the price is going up, excellent. Now, when you're just mentally taking notes, how many the MM seem to be sitting there selling on the ask. If this MM is on the bid, how many do they buy when there are orders at that level? Relatively speaking, does it match up at all, or does the MM seem to drop very quickly at any sort of bid whacking over on the bid? Manipulation is probably going on, because that's just what it is. They're not probably going on. That's what's more than likely going on, because they're just trying to create the illusion of buying pressure of a strong bid, and the MM is just diluting for their client. At the end of the day, the best way to sum this up is it's all about comparison. All we're doing is comparing how the MM acts on the ask compared to how they act on the bid. If they act pretty much the same on both, and notice how I said pretty much, you don't need to know exactly, just get a feel for it. If they're pretty much acting the same, then they're just, like Knight. Knight, perfect example, always getting thrown under the bus. But Knight's always active on the ask. He's always active on the bid. He's just a normal market maker, doing what his clients, all his retail clients want. So it's one of those, and the reason Knight always gets thrown under the bid or the bus is because he is the most active, and the market maker that's always on most stocks. But look, Knight's always going to be on the bid. I have yet to see a stock where Knight is very active on the ask and then isn't anywhere found over on the bid. Knight's always going to be active on the bid, because if he is shorting, then he's always looking to cover, but he's not diluting, because I've seen Knight absorb quite a bit of shares over on the bid before. I've seen him sell a lot on the ask, but I've also seen Knight absorb a lot on the bid too. So they're just sitting there making the market. Slightly covered this in terms of the axe, but the majority of the time, whenever you're hearing people talk about the axe, don't even listen to people telling about the axe, because the majority of the time they're wrong. Just determine it for yourself. But usually it's either going to be Knight or a diluting MM, which they're Vert, VFIN, VNDM. Why is it going to be Knight? Well, I already hinted at that, because they represent the most clients, so they're always going to be very active. They are the king of retail, and most online brokerages route through them. Just given all that, they're just always going to be evil. So if you're thinking, hey, Clay, Knight is evil, how do you know that they are not shorting and diluting? Watch the bid. Watch the bid. And I totally realize that I am repeating myself over and over about this stuff, but I want you to just understand that fact that Knight is always going to be active on the bid. If they're not active, then maybe they got a new business model. But as far as I've seen it since I've been in the market, Knight is always active on the bid. So just look at the bid. I don't care how many people on the message boards are trying to blame Knight for this, that, and the other. Those people don't know what they're talking about. They're probably not even using level 2s. You should ask them, hey, are you even using level 2s? And they're, yeah, I'm using them. But just because you have a hammer and use it doesn't mean that you're using it to pound in a nail or do it the right way. Anybody that says Knight is shorting and is evil, they just don't understand how it works. They don't understand level 2s. Knight is just retail. They're just buying and selling shares for their clients. They're just being a good little puppet and being controlled by their puppet masters. The golden goose of axes is when you can find, for example, like a SEEB in our scenario, where you apply the general rule of an MM that is aggressive on the bid but not aggressive on the ask. That's the golden goose. Those are the axes where you take advantage of that and you ride the pony, because I mean it's one of those things where, I mean, you understand the dynamics now. Somebody that is aggressive on the bid means they're aggressive. They want to buy. They are bullish. They want demand. But if they're not offering out any supply or anything like that, not showing any bearishness, then more than likely a short that is now trying to cover, just like our example showed. And I want to actually, let's go through a couple more slides, and then I want to end on a certain note. No, I know I'm sitting here probably talking a lot of like firm statements, like this is the case, this is the case. None of it is an exact science. You know, these rules are great leading indicators, but the market is one fluid monster. It's always changing. These can, like I said, be good leading indicators, but at the end of the day, I don't really care how the MMs are acting or what they're doing, why they're doing it. I just want to know what price is a direction able to move in. Is it easily moving up? Excellent. Is it having a very hard time moving up? Not so good. Remember, as long as the MMs are allowing us to make money as traders, who cares if that means dilution is going on? You know, that does suck. That's a bummer for investors, but we're traders. Traders use level 2s. Investors just buy, and then, they just start going and doing their fundamental research or whatever. We're traders. We just want to know where the risks are at. Is the price able to move? Is the price struggling to move? Investors, if we're getting diluted on as traders, who cares? We're going to be selling out at the, as soon as we hit our goals, get our profits. Investors, yeah, diluting, they're losing, ownership in the company. Bummer for them. And keep in mind, penny stocks, most stocks that run are experiencing dilution, but they still run. The key is monitoring the dilution, and that's what level 2s is great for. So again, we don't care about that is happening in this situation. Dilution is happening. We just care about what is the price doing? Is the price going up? Is the risk and reward still in our favor, which level 2s does a great job of helping us with? That's what we care about. And then again, just want to end on this. Remember, the more ideals that are in our favor, the better. So I mean, if we have no dilution, then that's going to push us this way. Less dilution, it's not going to put us over here. I mean, dilution is certainly not going to push us that way. It'll never push us that way. It's going to push us that way or keep us stationary. But it's never going to be a good thing, because that just means there's more selling out there. But just because dilution's happening doesn't mean you jump off the ship. I mean, if there's still plenty of other things going on, then that's fine. So just when you look at this graph, and because we have the 3 layers of context that we've already talked about. Now, if dilution's in here, your point is never going to go from here, from point A to point B over here. That's just never going to happen. But it could still remain at point A. I mean, if there's plenty of belief in the stock, if there's plenty of people still talking about it and all sorts of hoop and holler about it, then you can stay at point A, and that's fine. But it's not like dilution is something you want to see. Now, shorting, on the other hand, I would argue, is a favorable thing. Now, I promise I'm not trying to push, any courses down anybody's throat, but if you've taken, my penny stock survival guide course, and if the belief is strong enough, and then all of a sudden you get shorts in it, that's going to push us over here. That's actually ideal in our favor, which makes even more probable point of success. Now, is that the case all the time? No, but I would argue that shorting is good. If shorting is happening in a stock with a lot of belief, and those are the stocks that you want to be playing, then hey, that's another ideal in our favor, and according to our diagram, that ups our probability of success. Again, though, word being probability, I am not sitting here proclaiming any guarantees. So that's how I look at it. Diluting, don't need to freak out, but it's certainly not helping the situation at all. Shorting, not always going to help the situation, but it's not even in the same atmosphere as what diluting's doing. Because again, what's the big difference? Shorters become guaranteed buyers. Diluters, nothing. They just sell. And then I just want to end on this because I think it's pretty funny, and it just goes against anything that message boards and stuff like that say, because there's just so much misinformation out there. But did you notice what was happening in our scenario here? So there was those evil shorters. Who was pushing up the price? The evil shorters were. Yet who was making it easier on the shorters to get out of their position? Who let ARCA, in our example, get out of the position? The diluters did. Why? Because they were the ones who were sitting there unloading all these massive positions of stock. Remember that big old dilution there? That's what finally allowed ARCA to get out. Remember these big old orders here from Billy Bob? Now ask yourself, imagine if there is no dilution going on. the level twos would have been moving that much quicker because there is nobody up there selling. So those big evil diluters or evil shorters that were actually helping us out, who was bailing them out? The diluters were. Shorters love dilution because it helps them to get out, because they're sitting there on the ask, and if they ever need to get out, they can just slap the ask and get out. So shorters and diluters do not work together at all. Because remember, dude, if you're diluting and you want to get the best value for your shares, do you want the price to go down? No. So it's just funny because out there you're always seeing everybody, oh, it's the shorters and they're evil and blah, blah. No, shorters are our friends. They're trying to push the price up. And if the price is not budging, it is not shorters, it is dilution. And the diluting is actually helping the shorters get out, which is hurting us as longs. Because when we're in as longs, we love those guaranteed buyers that are going to have to buy no matter what. But if diluters are helping them get out, what good does that do? So moral of the story, when people are trying to throw diluters or shorters under the bus, it's just ignorance. They don't understand what's going on. We want shorters because I'm going to end it with these last two words. Shorters are guaranteed buyers.